A 13-year-old Sioux boy clutches a dull knife, trembling as he faces a dying soldier. "Scalp him!" a warrior shouts. In the chaos of the Little Bighorn, Black Elk's world shifts forever. That day in 1876, Custer's 7th Cavalry vanishes in a storm of dust and screams. No white soldier survives. What drives a child to such a brutal act? Black Elk's story unveils a raw, untold perspective of a battle that changed history. In June 1876, 13-year-old Black Elk, a Sioux boy known as Haka Sapa, camped with his Oglala band in the Greasy Grass Valley, a sacred ancestral ground along the river's east bank, lined with cottonwoods. The sprawling village, stretching from Hunkpapa lodges in the south to Santee and Yankton in the north, housed thousands, their teepee poles piercing the sky. 2 days prior, on June 23rd, the Sioux had settled here seeking peace after clashes with U.S. forces. Black Elk's second cousin, Crazy Horse, a revered war leader, had repelled General Crook's troops at Rosebud 8 days earlier and fended off cavalry at Powder River months before. Now the band's prepared for rest, not war. On June 24th, Harry Chin, a medicine man claiming power from bear dreams, summoned Black Elk to Rattling Hawk's teepee. Rattling Hawk, wounded at Rosebud, lay weakened, unable to fight. Chin enlisted Black Elk and 5 other boys for a healing ritual, assigning them roles as bears. Chin painted Black Elk's face and torso yellow, streaking black across his nose, and tied his hair into bear-like tufts, crowning him with an eagle feather. The other boys, coated red, wore real bear ears on their heads. Chin, draped in a bear hide, chanted low, his voice rising. 2 women joined, one cradling a water jug, the other clutching a bundle of sage. Black Elk, standing near the teepee's smoke hole, stared at the jug, recalling a vision from years prior where water held the sky. He squinted, searching for clouds in the liquid, but saw nothing clear. His mind drifted to that vision, his body lifted weightless as formless truths pressed upon him. A certainty gripped him, calamity loomed. He shook off the thought as Chin's song grew louder. The women offered sage and water to Rattling Hawk, who grasped a red staff carved with sacred marks. He rose, leaning on the staff, and shuffled outside. The boys followed, hopping and growling, colored feathers tucked in their mouths. Chin crawled on all fours, his hide dragging, mimicking a bear's gait. The ritual worked. Rattling Hawk's strength returned, though he could not fight the next day. The boys, paint-smearing, trudged to the Greasy Grass River, scrubbing yellow and red from their skin in the cool current. Back at camp, the village pulsed with energy. Men recounted Rosebud's triumphs, their voices sharp, while women led dances around crackling fire. Drums echoed as feet stomped the earth, celebrating survival. Black Elk watched his vision's weight lingering. As dusk fell, elders tasked Black Elk and other boys with moving the horse herd closer to camp. They guided dozens of ponies, their hooves kicking dust, to a grazing patch near the teepees. Night cloaked the valley, but the fires blazed on. Dancers circled their shadows, leaping until exhaustion claimed them. Black Elk slept fitfully, the vision's unease gnawing. At dawn on June 25th, Black Elk's father shook him awake. Tie a long rope to the lead mare, he said, handing Black Elk a coiled rawhide cord. "Keep the herd tight. If trouble comes, drive them back fast." Black Elk nodded, rubbing sleep from his eyes, and joined 3 other boys. They rode bareback, herding 50 ponies across the valley's edge, eyes scanning the horizon. By noon, the sun scorched the grass, heat shimmering off the river. The boys tethered the horses, leaving Black Elk's cousin to watch them. They stripped and waded into the greasy grass, splashing to cool off. Women dug turnips on the western bank. Others bathed nearby, their laughter carrying Black Elk rubbed bear grease on his arms, smoothing his skin against the heat. As he dipped into the water, a chill struck him, not from the current, but from within. His chest tightened, as if eyes watched from the hills. He glanced at the cottonwoods, then the river's bend, seeing nothing but feeling disaster's approach. His cousin led the horses to drink their noses, dipping into the shallows. Black Elk dunked his head, shaking off the dread, and swam deeper. The village hummed behind him, unaware as the morning burned on. A cry shattered the midday heat at the Hunkpapa camp. "Soldiers are coming! They're charging! Soldiers are coming!" The warning, sharp and urgent, surged through the greasy grass valley, rippling from Hunkpapa lodges to Santee and Yankton camps. An Oglala crier echoed the call, his voice rising in pitch. Villagers scrambled feet, pounding earth to secure horses grazing nearby. Black Elk leaped onto his buckskin pony, gripping its mane. His elder brother, astride a red-brown mare, spurred toward the Hunkpapa camp, dust trailing. Black Elk's father sprinted to him face-taut as the brother's shout faded. He forgot his revolver. He barked, thrusting a rusted carbine, his sick uncle's, into Black Elk's hands. "Get his gun back!" Black Elk tucked the carbine under his arm, kicked his pony's flanks, and galloped after his brother. Past the Hunkpapa teepees, a dust cloud swelled thick and choking. Through it, U.S. cavalry emerged, their bay horses snorting sabers. Glinting. Riders in blue coats, leveled Springfield carbines, firing bullets whined, kicking up dirt. "Go back," his brother yelled, waving a Colt revolver, his mare rearing. Black Elk hesitated, then followed him toward a dense thicket behind the Hunkpapa camp. There, 20 warriors crouched, bows drawn or lances poised. Women and children fled south along the river, their cries faint as they climbed a hillside, skirts catching on sagebrush. Black Elk glanced back, seeing their figures blur in the haze. At the thicket more, Hunkpapa men gathered, some bare-chested, still dripping from the river. Bullets snapped overhead, splintering cottonwood branches. Leaves drifted down. Warriors mounted ponies, hooves churning mud, and charged toward the village. Black Elk, clutching the carbine, stayed low, his pony skittish. Dust cloaked the camp below. He couldn't see the soldiers advance. Hooves thundered, mixing with screams and the crack of gunfire, like a storm's rumble. From the woods and open ground, voices rose. "Be brave. Don't act like women." The words cut through the panic, steadying the men. Black Elk, heart pounding, recalled his vision of Gaul, a spirit figure, and sensed a force halting the Hunkpapa retreat. The thicket buzzed with action. A warrior notched an arrow, aiming at a cavalryman 50 yards off. Another hefted a stone-headed club, eyes locked on the dust. Black Elk's brother dismounted, revolver cocked, and joined the line. Black Elk slid off his pony carbine heavy in his hands and crouched beside him. The soldiers' fire slackened their horses, wheeling as warriors pressed forward. Non-combatants gasped behind the trees, their breaths ragged. The village, now a swirl of dust and noise, lay obscured, but the fight was shifting. Black Elk crouched in the cottonwood thicket behind the Hunkpapa camp, clutching his uncle's carbine. He reflected on a vision from years prior, a prophecy of destiny that stirred a conviction the U.S. Army would fall, and his people, the Sioux, were spirits of thunder. A shout broke through the dust. "Crazy Horse is coming!" From the north and west, an eagle-bone whistle shrilled, followed by a fierce cry. "Hokahi!" like a gust ripping through the valley. Dust and gunpowder choked the air, the greasy grass valley dim with smoke. Screams mixed with gunfire, cracks, and the thud of hooves. To Black Elk's left, cavalry horses clattered iron shoes striking as 30 troopers retreated into willow brush, their Springfield carbines firing. Warriors advanced, arrows whistling. The last cavalry mounts crashed through the thicket, and Black Elk, caught in the surge, moved amid chaos. Lakota and soldiers darted in and out, yelling, "Hurry, move fast!" as they pushed upstream. Through the haze, Black Elk saw a Lakota warrior charge a trooper standing firm, revolver drawn. The warrior grabbed the horse's reins, yanking hard. The soldier fired his Colt, and the warrior fell, blood soaking the grass. At 13, Black Elk was too small to break through the mass of fighters. He gripped his carbine, eyes scanning, but warriors blocked his path. The air thickened the battle, a tangle of bodies and blades. The fight spilled into the greasy grass river. Black Elk waded in water, lapping his knees as men and horses clashed. Splashes burst like hail lances, thrust and revolvers snapped. A soldier's mount reared unseating him. A warrior's club smashed his skull. Black Elk climbed the bank, drenched as Lakota stripped blue coats from dead troopers, donning wool jackets and kepi caps. One tied a soldier's scarf around his neck, teeth flashing. A Lakota rider, lance raised, trotted up and pointed to a soldier sprawled on the bank, twitching, blood oozing from his ribs. "Boy, get down and scalp him," he said. Black Elk dismounted, pulling a blunt trade knife. He knelt by the man whose short hair clung to the dull blade. The soldier's teeth clenched, eyes wide. Black Elk hesitated, then raised his carbine, firing a .45-70 round into the man's forehead. The body stilled. With 2 cuts, he took the scalp, blood coating his fingers. Warriors pressed upstream, their shouts fading into the dust. Black Elk stood scalp in hand, the river's churn at his back. Crazy Horse's arrival had shifted the battle's tide, but the ground bore the cost, Lakota and soldiers fallen in the morning's clash. As the battle raged in the Greasy Grass Valley, Lakota and Cheyenne warriors pursued U.S. cavalrymen up a distant hill across the river, their silhouettes swallowed by dust. The rest of the village, women, children, and elders, fled downstream, dragging travois and clutching belongings. Above the Santee camp on a high ridge, a thick dust cloud hung, pierced by the darting forms of warriors moving like swallows. Gunfire popped steadily, echoing off the bluffs. Black Elk clutched the fresh scalp in his fist, its blood drying on his knuckles. He mounted his buckskin pony, urging it toward a hillside where women and children had gathered, determined to show his mother his trophy. As he rode, a young woman among a group of advancing warriors caught his eye. She sang loudly, her voice cutting through the din. "Brothers, your friends have come. Be brave, be brave. Would you see me taken captive?" Her words spurred the fighters, their lances raised as they pressed toward the river. Passing the Oglala camp, Black Elk glimpsed Rattling Hawk, the warrior healed the day before sitting alone in his teepee. He cradled a trade musket, singing softly, his voice heavy, "Brothers, what have you done that I cannot do?" The mournful notes lingered as Black Elk rode on. At the hillside he found the women, their faces taut, singing war songs. Their tremolo cries, high-pulsing wails, urged the warriors fighting across the river. Black Elk's mother spotted the scalp dangling from his hand and let out a sharp tremolo, her eyes gleaming with pride. He dismounted, standing beside her, and peered across the river. Dust coiled over the distant hill, shrouding the fight. Riderless cavalry horses, gray and sweat-streaked, bolted from the cloud, splashing into the greasy grass. Black Elk lingered, the women's songs filling the air, their tremolo unbroken. The dust obscured details, but the warriors' relentless movement signaled the soldiers' doom. Confidence rippled through the group. Defeat for the Bluecoats seemed certain. Other boys, some younger than Black Elk, clustered nearby with their mothers and sisters. One, gripping a short bow, nudged him. "Come fight," he said. Black Elk nodded, swinging onto his pony. 6 boys joined him, their ponies snorting as they rode down the slope toward the river. Halfway across, they passed 10 gray cavalry horses, saddles empty, galloping wildly into the water, their hooves churning foam. The boys crossed the greasy grass and entered a ravine leading to the cliffs where the battle persisted. They urged their ponies up the rocky path, dust stinging their eyes. At the ridge's edge, the scene unfolded. Most soldiers lay dead, their blue coats torn, sprawled among sagebrush. A few still moved, clutching carbines or crawling. Blood pooled beneath them, glinting in the sun. More boys. 12 in all had gathered their ponies, circling. They notched arrows, firing at the remaining troopers. One soldier, kneeling, raised a revolver. An arrow pierced his chest, and he fell. Black Elk drew his bow, aiming at a trooper 20 yards off, but the man collapsed before he loosed. The boys rode tighter circles, their arrows flying as the last soldier's resistance faded under the relentless hail. The greasy grass valley reeked of blood and powder. Black Elk picked through the carnage on the ridge where fallen soldiers lay strewn among sagebrush. He spotted a trooper writhing 3 arrows lodged in his chest and thigh. Black Elk tugged at the man's wool coat, but a Lakota warrior, broad-shouldered, shoved him aside and yanked the garment free, slipping it over his own shoulders. Black Elk stepped back, eyes scanning the body. A glint caught his attention, a round yellow object dangling from the soldier's belt. He knelt, unhooked it, and held up a pocket watch, its brass case gleaming. He looped its chain around his neck. The watch ticked briefly, then stilled. Black Elk kept it unaware of its function. The faint clicks, a mystery he'd unravel later. Women from the village carrying hide bags climbed the hill to join the boys and warriors. Together, they scoured the ridge. Gray cavalry horses lay dead, some slumped over soldiers, others crushed beneath them, their saddles twisted. The Sioux had already carried off their own fallen, leaving few Lakota bodies visible, though Black Elk knew dozens had died or lay wounded, their blood mixing with the soldiers in the dust. The haze hung thick, blurring faces and uniforms. No one pointed out. Pinhanska, the Sioux name for Custer and Black Elk, saw no man matching his description among the dead. Near a sage clump, a soldier raised a trembling hand, groaning his keepee fallen. Black Elk notched an arrow, drew his bow, and loosed. The shaft struck the man's forehead, and his limbs jerked, then stilled. Black Elk moved on, passing 10. Lakota men tending to a wounded warrior. Drawing closer, he recognized Black Wasiku, brother of Chase, in the morning, and his cousin A. 45-70 bullet had torn through Black Wasiku's right shoulder, lodging in his left hip, caught as he hung low on his horse's side in battle. 2 men pressed sage paste into the wounds while another tied a hide strip to stem the bleeding. Black Wasiku's face twisted, but he stayed silent. Black Elk's father and Black Wasiku's father, faces dark with rage, stood nearby. They turned, spotting a lone soldier alive. Crawling through the grass, together they charged, lances raised. The soldier, a large man, fumbled for his revolver, but fell under their thrusts. They hacked at the body, severing strips of flesh. The cuts, precise and deliberate. The meat glistened, but they tossed it aside, spitting. Black Elk watched unmoved the act, a release of their fury. A boy, no older than 10, tugged Black Elk's arm, pointing to a dead trooper. "Scalp him for me," he said. Eyes wide, Black Elk knelt, his blunt knife sawing at the man's short hair. Blood welled as he pried off the scalp and handed it to the boy, who sprinted downhill, shouting for his mother. On the ridge, 50 warriors pressed the remaining soldiers toward a knoll where their mule-pack trains stood, carbines flashing as they retreated. Black Elk's arms grew heavy, the stench of blood cloying. His interest waned, the thrill of the fight dulled by the slaughter. He mounted his pony, joining 3 other boys heading back to camp. He felt no regret, only a grim satisfaction. The soldiers had come to kill his people on their own land, and their defeat felt just. In the thicket hours earlier, when the first shots rang out, his vision's thunder, spirits had whispered this outcome. The soldiers' arrogance had doomed them. That night the village stayed awake, fires burning, voices low. Black Elk sat among them, the brass watch cold against his chest, its silence a weight he couldn't yet name. On June 26, 1876, the air still heavy with the stench of death, a fresh group of 30 Lakota and Cheyenne warriors rode to the hill where surviving U.S. soldiers had entrenched, relieving the night sentries who trotted back to camp, lances slung across their ponies. Black Elk 13 joined his mother, who rode a bay mare, a colt trailing at her side. He mounted his buckskin pony, the brass pocket watch from a fallen soldier dangling at his neck, and followed her toward the hill. From the valley floor, they saw cavalry horses and mules dotting the ridge. Many slumped their carcasses, bloating. The soldiers, hidden behind hastily dug earthworks of dirt and saddlebags, were invisible. At the hill's western base, near the Greasy Grass River, bulberry bushes clustered. A boy, round fool, perhaps 15, circled one thicket, bow in hand. Black Elk reined in, calling, "What are you doing?" Round fool pointed to the bushes. "A white man's hiding there," he said. A rustle confirmed it. A soldier cut off during the retreat had cowered there all night. 5 boys, including Black Elk, dismounted, notching arrows. They fanned out, circling the thicket, their moccasins silent on the grass. The soldier shifted inside twigs, snapping. An arrow flew. He yelped, ow, and darted to another bush. The boys laughed, treating it like a rabbit hunt, loosing arrows as he scrambled. Black Elk aimed his shot, grazing a branch. After 10 minutes, a warrior tossed a burning sage bundle into the grass. Flames licked the bushes, smoke curling. The soldier, coughing, bolted out, his blue coat tattered. 2 warriors charged lances, piercing his chest. He collapsed, blood pooling. Black Elk and his mother climbed the hill's rear slope, joining 20 Lakota warriors posted behind rocks. Peering over, they saw only dead mules and horses. No soldiers, their earthworks shielding them. The warriors held their ground bows and muskets ready, but fired sparingly, conserving arrows. As Black Elk and his mother descended toward the river, a volley of Springfield carbine shots rang from the hill. Bullets splashed into the greasy grass, one grazing the colt's flank, sending it skittering. Black Elk's mother spurred her mare, and they galloped across water, spraying. Dusk settled as they reached the village, teepees still standing but buzzing with urgency. Scouts breathless from a 10-mile ride reported troops advancing from upstream, likely Gibbon's column moving to reinforce Custer's shattered command. Elders convened, voices sharp, and ordered the camp struck. By twilight, women dismantled teepees, rolling hides and lashing poles to travois. Men rounded up 200 ponies, tying bundles of dried meat and robes. Black Elk helped his mother load a horse-drawn travois where his 2 younger brothers, aged 7 and 9, sat. She tucked 3 yipping puppies into a hide sack, tying it to the frame. The village moved out a long column, snaking north along the greasy grass toward Woodless Creek in the Bighorn Mountains, 30 miles off. Darkness cloaked the trail, lit only by faint starlight. Black Elk rode beside the travois, his brothers dozing. The puppies squirmed, one tumbling out. He leaned down, scooping it back into the sack, his hands brushing the watch at his neck. Another puppy slipped free. He grabbed it, tying the sack tighter. Exhaustion tugged at him, but sleep eluded him, the night's march relentless. The column pressed on hooves muffled as the greasy grass faded. Behind Black Elk's eyes stung from dust, his body aching, but the village's resolve held firm, driven by the need to outpace the soldiers closing in. At dawn on June 27, 1876, the Sioux column reached a dry creek bed 15 miles from the greasy grass valley. Women raised teepees, lashing poles tight, while men unpacked travois. Black Elk sat by a fire, watching cooks roast buffalo meat, its fat marbling the cuts. He chewed a piece, savoring the rich flavor, wishing for more, as the village feasted their first full meal since the battle. By noon, the camp stirred, elders signaled to move, and families packed hides and meat bundles. Black Elk helped his mother tie a travois to her mare, the colt nudging her side. The column trekked 10 miles to Woodloose Creek, nestled at the Bighorn Mountains base. There they pitched camp-driving tipi pegs into the soft earth. Black Elk hauled water from the creek, his brass pocket watch bouncing against his chest. In the camp, a wounded warrior, 3 bears lay on a hide stretcher, his chest bandaged with sage-soaked cloth. He twitched, muttering, "Janini, Janini," his voice faint. Black Elk, passing with a waterskin, paused, puzzled by the words, their meaning lost. 3 bears' convulsions worsened. His breath stopped by dusk. The camp named the site, the place where Janini died, marking his passing in their oral record. That evening, a shout broke. "The quiet! Soldiers are coming!" Black Elk spun, heart racing, and saw figures approaching through the dusk, blue coats glinting. Panic rippled, women grabbing children. Then laughter erupted. 10. Lakota scouts wearing looted cavalry jackets had staged the scare. Black Elk exhaled, joining the chuckles. The camp's tension easing, scouts reported no pursuit. Gibbon's troops, miles away, had halted. The village was safe. Fires blazed across the camp, their smoke curling skyward. Warriors painted their faces red and black, streaks bold, and began victory dances. Drums pounded, feet stomped, and voices rose in song recounting the greasy grass triumph. Black Elk watched his bow propped nearby the watch's weight, a reminder of the soldier he'd scalped. Women circled their tremolo cries sharp, honoring the fighters. The dances stretched past midnight, the camp alive with defiance. Black Elk sat by his family's fire, the meat's taste lingering. Three Bears' death and the false alarm underscored the battle's cost and their fragile safety. Yet the drums, the songs, and the firelight held the Sioux together, their unity unbroken as they faced an uncertain future in the mountains. On June 27, 1876, Black Elk's village found refuge at Woodloose Creek, their fires burning bright. The victory dances honored the fallen and the living, binding the Sioux in shared purpose. Black Elk, clutching his looted watch, felt the battle's weight, but also its necessity. The greasy grass fight, seen through a boy's eyes, revealed a people's unyielding spirit carved into history by their actions.